I am the Omega who shares a perfect 100% compatibility with Tristan. I was the antidote that was forced into his arms during his fevered rut. I loved him, but all I ever received in return were his cold, cutting words. When the cave collapsed, we were trapped together in the dark. The air was thick with the scent of lemon, his pheromones mingling with blood, so strong it turned bitter. He avoided me like I was poison, his hoarse voice echoing in the darkness. Even now, you can't stop using your pheromones to seduce an alpha, can you? Adrian, you really are pathetic. Curled up on the ground, I pressed my trembling hand against the wound that cut deep through my abdomen, trying to hide it with my shirt. I whispered, I'm sorry. When I die, you won't have to smell my pheromones ever again. That should make you happy, right? The surge of adrenaline that had numbed my pain began to fade, and then the agony came, sharp and consuming. Pain in my stomach, pain in my back, pain so deep I could hardly breathe. I couldn't stop the pheromones from spilling out with the blood. Within seconds, the cave was filled with the heavy scent of lime. Bitter, cloying, suffocating. Tristan sat on the other side of the cave, his back against the wall, voice low and mocking. Even now, you still can't stop trying to seduce an alpha. Adrian, you really are disgusting. Even without seeing his face, I could picture it clearly. The tight line of his jaw, the sharp glint in his eyes, cold and disdainful. He was always like that. The pain in my chest spread, tight and raw. I wanted to tell him, it wasn't like that. I never meant to release my pheromones. I never tried to tempt anyone. But Tristan always said I was troublesome. Better not to let him know I was injured. So I curled up tighter, pressing my shirt hard against the bleeding wound in my stomach, and whispered again, I'm sorry. I was the first to notice the cave collapsing. When I saw a rock falling straight toward Tristan's head, I didn't even think. I just threw myself at him. The earth caved in. We fell together into this hollow space. And by some miracle, he was unharmed. But I wasn't that lucky. Playing innocent won't work, Tristan snarled. You'd better pull back that disgusting scent right now. I couldn't. The pheromones kept leaking out with the blood. I could only bite down hard and press my wound tighter. Tristan's tone was icy calm. Not listening. He sounded almost detached. It's useless, Adrian. Saving me just now won't change anything. Releasing pheromones to please me won't either. I've taken full control of my family's company. No one can force me to stay in this marriage anymore. Tomorrow, we'll dissolve it. The words crashed over me like a tidal wave, washing away 10 years of memories in an instant. My mind went blank. I blinked slowly and rasped, okay. If I'm still alive tomorrow, that is. Meeting Tristan was the greatest accident of my life. When I was 13, I was diagnosed with high-functioning autism. It was the kind of autism closest to being normal, they said, but I was still withdrawn, obsessive, and rigid in my routines. In the doctor's office, the physician sighed. What a beautiful child, such a pity. At the time, my father's company had just gone public. Our family, once self-made, finally entered high society. So my illness became an embarrassing secret. I was locked inside the house. The only people I ever saw were family and private tutors, until I met Tristan. That day, the servants were busy preparing for a family banquet, and forgot to lock my door. Music drifted from the garden behind the villa. I wanted to hear it better, so I stepped outside. But as soon as I reached the first floor, a group of children surrounded me, mocking and pointing. Mute, idiot. Panicking, I covered my ears and crawled under a table. They only laughed harder, stomping around and shouting. My sister, Ashley, stood behind them, smiling quietly. And then I saw him. Tristan. He wasn't as tall as he is now, but he already had that frown he always wore. Get lost. That single word silenced everyone. He walked up to me, crouched down, and frowned. Are you stupid? Why didn't you call for help? I looked into his beautiful eyes and nodded. I was stupid, because that's what my parents and sister always said. Tristan laughed, exasperated. He ruffled my hair, his tone both firm and gentle. No one should ever call themselves stupid. You're not. That day, I felt fear for the first time, but I also met the person who would change my life. Tristan was the only one patient with me, the only one who didn't find me dull. My therapist once asked, how do you feel about Tristan? I thought carefully before answering, I like him. And your parents? Your sister? I blinked slowly, then said solemnly, no, I only like Tristan. After that, Tristan came to see me often. He complained that he was always being arranged to meet different omegas. It annoyed him, and since I was a quiet beta, I made him feel at ease. The Tristans were one of the most prestigious families in the city. Tristan, with his S-class alpha pheromones, was someone everyone wanted to climb toward. So my parents didn't stop him from visiting. They actually encouraged it. Every time Tristan came, my mother would push my heavily made-up sister toward him. Young Master Tristan, our Ashley is an Omega. You two should spend time together. Tristan didn't even glance at her. I'm here for Adrian. He hated being controlled. He avoided Ashley at all costs, always sneaking away to eat lunch, study, or nap with me. He even brought me entire sets of colored pencils. Whenever I arranged them obsessively by shade, Tristan would sigh that I was too fussy. But when he heard Ashley say the same thing, he would snap, fierce and protective. You Omegas are the fussy ones. He loved painting with me in the locked attic. I liked drawing the moon, only the moon. Tristan said the moons I drew were prettier than the real one. He'd turn off the lights and pull the curtains tight. Silence all around us. We'd crouch under the table, lighting a small candle together. The golden glow would spill over the paper beneath us. Look, Adrian, he whispered. We have our own moon. I couldn't tell if the light on Tristan's face came from the candle or from the moon I'd drawn. All I knew was that his sharp nose and dark eyes looked achingly beautiful. So I reached out and brushed his eyebrow, his nose, and finally, the corner of his lips with my fingertips. Tristan stiffened. His gaze darkened. Adrian, you're kind of strange. Startled, I snatched my hand back. My heart thudded wildly in my chest. Then, suddenly, something soft and warm brushed my lips. Tristan's face was so close that my eyelashes trembled against his skin. He pulled away with a teasing smile. Now that reaction is even stranger. Tristan didn't know about my condition. He just thought I was a little odd sometimes. The strangest thing happened on the 461st day after we met. That evening, I suddenly developed a high fever. A strong lime scent filled the air. The moment Tristan smelled it, his eyes turned red. His whole body trembled. He clenched his fists, gritting his teeth. So even you. Then he slammed the door and left. He never came back. I missed him, even more so when they held me down to inject the suppressant. Through the haze, I heard the doctor's voice outside the door. S-class Omegas often experience delayed secondary differentiation. When that happens, their fevers are more intense, and their dependence on alphas becomes much stronger. I had become an Omega. I could guess the rest of what Tristan hadn't said that day. So even you are an Omega, the kind of person he hated the most. All sound was sealed outside by the fallen rocks and soil. The cave felt like a world cut off from the living. I had always liked silence, but silence could not stop pain. Cold sweat slid down my temples. My voice trembled as I pleaded. Tristan, could you just release a little of your scent for me? Just a little. Our pheromones were a perfect match, 100%. His scent had the power to calm me, to ease the pain that tore through my body. In the darkness, Tristan's voice was low and strained, as if he were fighting something within himself. Oh, didn't bring one of those shirts or ties you like to steal from me this time, he mocked. My lips trembled. I bit down hard, saying nothing. So he knew. He knew that sometimes I took his shirts and ties just to breathe in that faint trace of him, the scent that always made the world feel less lonely. That night, long ago, had been the worst. The mirror had shown me a body covered in bruises, the mark on my neck conspicuously absent. There was no comfort, no claim, no belonging, and for some reason, that emptiness had hurt more than the pain itself. They said Omegas could feel hollow after intimacy without a bond. I hadn't understood until that moment. It was like my heart had been wrapped in fine wire, aching and hollow all at once. So I had found his shirt. Hidden in the bathroom, I pressed it close, inhaling the faint trace of ebony and cedar. It smelled clean, steady, like the person I once trusted most. When I put it back, I couldn't help keeping the tie. I even wrote a note in my diary. Adrian borrowed one tie from Tristan. Navy blue, diagonal stripes. Will return it when the sadness ends. But 246 days passed, and the sadness never ended. Now, my voice was barely a whisper. I'll return it, one day. Tristan's reply was colder than the air around us. Don't bother. Throw it away. Before I could answer, the ground shuddered beneath us. From outside came the roar of machinery, rescue. Rocks crumbled at the entrance, shrinking the already narrow space. The air grew thin. Tristan stood and pressed a handful of soil between his palms. Idiots. This whole mountain's unstable, rain would have brought it down eventually. He glanced at me, his tone sharp. Your family's company took this project. You knew that, didn't you? I looked at him blankly. Our company? He gave a bitter laugh. They sent you to me so they could cut corners and profit from cheap materials, didn't they? He paused, voice turning colder. Disgusting. I blinked, trying to make sense of his words. Tristan, what do you mean, cut corners? He exhaled slowly, voice rough. I brought you here so you could see for yourself what your family's done. Where we're trapped right now, this should have been reinforced with steel bars, but I saw the rods before the collapse. They were thinner, cheaper. His tone hardened, filled with a decade of bitterness. I warned my father once. People who use someone's biology, their pheromones, their body, as a tool for business, are no better than animals. The word animal echoed in my chest. It was the second time I'd heard him say it. The first time had been 4 years after we'd gone our separate ways. My mother had led me to a sealed house. Adrian, she said softly, Tristan's inside. You've been waiting for him, haven't you? I nodded. He's not well. It's his sensitivity phase. If he's alone too long, he could die. Her eyes met mine. Your pheromones can help him. Will you save him? Yes, I had whispered, without hesitation. High-grade alphas could lose control during their sensitivity periods, even suffer shock or collapse. I hadn't doubted her for a moment. The door opened. Someone shoved me inside. The air was thick, heavy, filled with the scent of burning wood and storm-soaked earth. In the dimness, I saw him, Tristan, slumped against the wall, trembling, his breathing ragged. He looked at me with eyes burning red, more beast than human. Tristan, I called softly, but he moved before I could think. The world spun. Later, I would remember only fragments, the sound of his voice, half fury, half despair, the crushing realization that he was no longer the boy who once said, "You're not stupid, Adrian." When I awoke again, it was in a hospital room. My throat was raw, my wrists and ankles bandaged. I couldn't move without pain. A nurse whispered outside the curtain, "He's marked him, permanently. A lifetime mark." It meant we had to marry. It meant no escape. For a while, I thought that maybe, after everything, he would soften, that the Tristan who once smiled beneath candlelight would return. But he never did. His touch grew colder, his words sharper. He would hold me close only to whisper things that broke me further. I tried to tell him no, tried to explain that I hadn't wanted any of it, but he never listened. I told myself he was just angry, that if I were more normal, more like everyone else, he wouldn't hate me so much. I loved him even as I feared him. I wanted to run, even as I longed to stay. Maybe this was what the doctors called dependence. Tristan was my alpha, the center of my gravity, the one I couldn't escape. And yet, he despised me, and everything my presence reminded him of. Now, in this collapsing cave, the sound of rescue drew near, but my body had gone cold. Tremors shook my hands. Shock, the beginning of the end. Maybe I wouldn't make it out this time. But if I didn't, perhaps, at last, I would be free from this thing they called dependence. And maybe, Tristan would finally be free, too. My consciousness began to fade. Out of nowhere, I thought of Bella. Bella was a stray dog I once took in. Maybe he was the only being in this world who would actually miss me. Afraid Tristan wouldn't let me keep him, I hid that tiny, palm-sized puppy inside my pocket. But I was never good at pretending or lying. Tristan found out soon enough. 1 minute, he said coldly. Get rid of it. I clutched my pocket, stepping back. If I throw him away, he'll die. Tristan's tone sharpened. I'll count to 3. If you don't, both of you can get out. I turned toward the bedroom. Tristan's voice stopped me. Where do you think you're going? I looked back and said seriously, to pack my things. He frowned, his voice rising in anger. You'd leave me for a dog? I nodded. Tristan let out a short, incredulous laugh. And where exactly would you go with it? I thought for 2 seconds before answering gravely, I haven't figured that out yet. Tristan looked up at the ceiling, pacing in frustration. Finally, he snapped. Adrian, you really amaze me. Fine, keep it, but if I ever catch it making a mess, I'll bury it myself. I trembled, gently covering Bella's small ears. Those words were too cruel for him to hear. The noise outside the cave paused for a moment. Summoning the last of my strength, I said weakly, can I ask you, to take care of Bella for me, please? Don't. The hem of his pants, choking on my own voice. Tristan, please. All I wanted was a little comfort, just enough to breathe again. Through the haze of pain, I saw him lean closer, a faint smirk on his lips. Sorry, he whispered near my ear. Your scent disgusts me. I just can't. At that instant, shame swallowed me whole. My lips trembled, but no words came out. I endured in silence for 3 days before finally passing out and being sent to the hospital. So that's it, he did it on purpose. That tiny vial that could have saved me, he broke it on purpose. And those words, I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady, you said them on purpose too, didn't you? No, Tristan replied cruelly. Your scent really is disgusting. Something shattered deep inside my chest. The shards were sharp, they tore through me, leaving only coldness behind. Maybe he heard my ragged breathing, because Tristan asked mockingly, what's wrong? Are you mad? In the darkness, I nodded faintly. He sounded utterly indifferent. Go ahead. You'll still come back, like always. He was right. When we were kids, even if he upset me, I'd be the one to pretend nothing happened. The one who quietly walked over and tugged on his sleeve first. Because I was afraid that if I stayed mad too long, he'd leave. But this time, it was different. This time, he'd been angry for too long. And I was the one paying for it. My thoughts started to blur. I murmured weakly, this time, I'm really done with you. What did you say? Before I could answer, a thunderous noise drowned out his voice. A flash of blinding white light burst through. Amid the chaos and shouts, I closed my eyes completely. Tristan, this time, it's me who's letting go. When the light exploded before his eyes, Tristan heard the rescuers cry out, "Oh God, there's so much blood. Someone's hurt, get the medics, now." His heart skipped violently. Whose blood? Who's hurt? He forced his eyes open, but the brightness stabbed painfully. A rescuer draped a dark cloth over his eyes. "The Omega who was with you," they said. "Didn't you know?" Tristan froze. He ripped off the cloth and stumbled back toward the collapsed cave. "Tristan, stop. You shouldn't move yet, your eyes." But he didn't listen. He pushed past the medics until he reached the opening. His voice was trembling. "Adrian, get out here right now. What are you doing?" No answer. Desperate, he shoved aside a few nurses, and then he saw blood. Adrian lay curled up in a pool of red, eyes closed, his pale face streaked with a single tear. No expression, no movement. Doctors were frantically trying to stop the bleeding. "He's in critical condition. He's gone into shock. Get him to the hospital now." Tristan stood there, speechless, his ears ringing. The silent scene burned into his vision, Adrian's blood, the fragile stillness. A dry, disbelieving laugh escaped his throat. "No, that's impossible. He's not hurt," he insisted hoarsely. "He can't be." When the rocks fell, the doctor cut him off sharply. He was struck by debris. It hit his side, nearly went through. And then Tristan remembered how, just before the collapse, Adrian had pushed him out of the way. The rock that hit Adrian was meant for him. A crushing weight pressed down on his chest. He grabbed his assistant by the collar, shouting, "Call for a helicopter. Now!" The roar of the blades filled the air, but through it, Tristan could still hear the steady drip of blood hitting the floor. Adrian was still bleeding. The gauze soaked through, scarlet spilling down the side of the stretcher, pooling at Tristan's feet. His scent lingered in the air, faint, fragile, like a hand tightening around Tristan's throat. He stared at Adrian's pale face beneath the oxygen mask, hearing his own voice echo in his mind. The cruel words he'd once said in that cave. His throat burned, his chest aching like fire. The doctor pressed harder on the wound. Tristan flinched as if feeling the pain himself. But Adrian stayed silent, his face still calm. "Doesn't he feel pain?" Tristan whispered. The doctor hesitated. "With a wound like that, of course he does. Right now, adrenaline might be masking it, but soon, it'll hurt more than anything." The doctor frowned. Did he not cry out when he was trapped? Had he? No. He had only whispered for a little comfort. Even when Tristan's temper had turned cruel, Adrian would only frown faintly and whisper, "Please, be gentle." Afterward, when the pain became unbearable, he'd hide in the bathroom, clutching Tristan's shirt, breathing it in quietly. 3 years of marriage, he never once asked for comfort, and when he finally did, Tristan had refused, had mocked him instead. The sound of a sharp slap echoed in the helicopter. Tristan had hit himself. He hadn't even realized Adrian was hurt. He hadn't stopped the bleeding. He hadn't done anything. Tristan bowed his head, eyes tightly shut, his brow furrowed in despair. He pressed his hands together, whispering like a prayer. "When he wakes up, I'll apologize. I'll make it right. I'll be good to him this time." He planned everything in his mind, getting a nutritionist, helping Adrian recover, taking care of him properly, until the piercing sound of the monitor cut through his thoughts. He froze. On the screen, a flat line. Only then did he realize, there would be no next time. "I had a long dream. So long it felt like it stretched across the past 10 years. In the dream, I was still that boy hiding under the table, surrounded by people. But this time, Tristan was there too, standing with my parents, laughing at me. So they were all the same, after all. I tried to hide forever, but my mother dragged me out, gripping my arm painfully. 'You should be grateful,' she said coldly. 'You're an Omega, and you matched perfectly with Tristan. If not, I'd have thrown you away long ago. An Omega's worth lies in belonging to an Alpha. Marrying Tristan is your greatest value. So that's it. Was that why they kept me? Because I was an Omega?' I thought bitterly, if only I weren't one. Then maybe they would have abandoned me early on. That would have been better than all these years entangled with Tristan." The dream spun violently. I saw myself holding divorce papers. Tristan's voice echoed all around me. Adrian, Adrian, where are you? I'm sorry. I regret everything. Please, don't leave me. I clutched the papers to my chest and ran. No, Tristan, you don't get to regret it now. As I ran, one thought filled my mind. Adrian, you're free. Forget Tristan. From now on, live the way you want. I ran faster and faster, until, just as I was about to escape the fog, I stumbled and fell. A sharp pain shot through my side. Then, Tristan's hoarse voice reached my ears. Adrian, you've been unconscious for 2 days. You're finally awake. I frowned slightly. He panicked, shouting, Doctor, someone get the doctor. Then his voice softened. Adrian, does it still hurt? Don't be afraid. I released my pheromones. You should feel better soon. Pheromones? But I couldn't sense anything. I slowly opened my eyes. Tristan's face came into focus, unshaven, exhausted, still wearing the same dirt-stained suit from the cave. My head was spinning. My body, completely weak. I forced my eyes up to meet his and said with the last of my strength, the divorce papers, give them to me. And before I slipped back into sleep, I saw his stunned expression, as if he had forgotten every word he'd ever said. But that was all right, because I hadn't. I didn't know how long I'd been unconscious when voices around me finally woke me up. The excessive blood loss may cause unpredictable complications, the doctor said cautiously, and we found that the patient has been in a pheromone-deficient state for quite some time. Sir, have you never provided your Omega with any pheromone comfort? No, Tristan's voice was rough and strained. Even when he was in so much pain he could barely breathe. I didn't do it. The doctor sighed softly and tried to console him. It's all right. You still have time to make up for it. From now on, try releasing more pheromones around him. I already have, Tristan said, his tone sounding defeated in a way I'd never heard before. But he still trembles from the pain, his forehead soaked in sweat, his lips bitten raw. The doctor took out a small device. With a soft beep, he frowned. The concentration of alpha pheromones in the air is indeed very high. That shouldn't be possible. I can't smell it anymore. I ignored the shock on Tristan's face. Quietly, almost to myself, I whispered, it seems I can't release pheromones anymore either. After an emergency examination, the diagnosis came back, glandular hemorrhagic damage. It meant I could no longer secrete pheromones, and I'd lost the ability to perceive anyone else's. I had become a beta again. That was supposed to be good news, but clearly, Tristan didn't think so. He tore the test results into shreds, then grabbed the doctor by the collar, shouting that the test must be wrong. This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. Mr. Tristan, please calm down, the doctor tried to soothe him. Our results are accurate. Tristan finally let go. After a long silence, his voice came out hoarse and trembling. When will he recover? The doctor hesitated, regret in his tone. Maybe tomorrow, or maybe never. That night, just like the past few days, Tristan stayed by my bedside, but his once straight posture had wilted, bent under the weight of exhaustion. In the middle of the night, pain woke me again. Seeing my furrowed brows, Tristan hurried to give me painkillers. He looked terrible, his face pale, hands shaking from over-releasing pheromones. I'm sorry. A tear slipped down his hand as he held the cup. Adrian, I turned my head away and closed my eyes. I ignored him completely. And this time, I meant it. Silence filled the room. I could hear his breathing grow rough and uneven. He took a deep breath, then whispered, let's start over, Adrian. Please. I wanted to yell at him, but if I wanted others to keep their promises, I had to keep mine first. So I held it in. He must have thought I'd fallen asleep. He patted me lightly, trying to soothe me, as if my silence were a sign of forgiveness. From that day on, he started talking to me more. His voice was softer, almost gentle again. Adrian, please don't be mad anymore, okay? I swear I won't be harsh with you again. I'll treat you better. I'll organize an art exhibition for you, alright? We'll pick a venue after you're discharged. Say something, Adrian. You can even curse me if you want. I watched him quietly, wordlessly. For a moment, he almost looked like the Tristan I used to know. Why was that? Because of guilt? Or because I had turned back into a beta? Maybe both. When Ashley heard about it, she actually came to the hospital to visit, something she'd never done before. Her makeup was flawless, her perfume thick in the air. Right in front of Tristan, she began releasing her pheromones deliberately. Tristan, now that he's a beta again, maybe you can finally consider me. A rare alpha like you shouldn't have to settle for someone like that. My pheromones might not be a perfect match, but they smell good too, don't they? She leaned in toward him. Just take a whiff. The look in Tristan's eyes darkened, turning cold and dangerous. If that's what you came here for, he said icily, you can leave now. He snapped his fingers. Someone, show her out. Two men in black stepped in and grabbed her by the arms. Ashley struggled, her face twisted in humiliation and rage. Tristan, who do you think you are? You still don't even realize the fool you married. Tristan's eyes narrowed sharply. Say that again. Ashley yanked her arm free and sneered. You really never noticed? Adrian's not normal. He's autistic, a complete idiot. Seeing Tristan's stunned expression, she laughed cruelly. When my mom saw you slipping away back then, she told Adrian that you'd die if he didn't help you during your heat. She tricked him into the isolation room with just a few words. He knew how dangerous a top alpha's heat could be, but he still walked in, thinking he was saving your life. We all thought he'd die in there, but that fool somehow survived, and you even married him. I listened in silence, expressionless. The words dragged me back to that hospital bed years ago, pretending to sleep while I overheard my parents talking. My mother's voice, laced with annoyance. I didn't think he'd actually live. If he'd died, we could have gotten a huge payout. My father's voice was low. Keep your voice down. Dead or alive, we can still use him. We'll force Tristan to marry him. So it was all a lie. The one who was supposed to die was never Tristan. It was me. Ashley kept sneering. Now we're all in the same boat. That accident ties our families together. If you dare lay a hand on me, we'll drag you down with us. Your company's billion-dollar investment, forget it. You're stuck with that idiot till death. Tristan lunged forward like a storm, his hand clamping around Ashley's throat, slamming her hard against the wall. Say his name again, he hissed through clenched teeth, and I'll make sure you never speak again. He didn't let go until her face turned purple, looking down at her trembling on the floor. He said coldly, $1 billion is a small price to send all three of you to hell. Ashley froze, eyes wide in terror. You're insane, Tristan, completely insane. She was dragged out screaming, her voice cut off as the door slammed shut. Silence fell again. Tristan turned slowly, mechanical, broken. His lips trembled, but only a faint breath escaped. I leaned back against the headboard, watching him calmly, as if admitting everything he'd just realized. Adrian wasn't normal because he was ill. His so-called deliberate approach and affection had never existed. Adrian had only wanted to save him, had only seen him as the one bit of color in his dim, lonely world, his only moonlight. But now, Adrian didn't love him anymore. Tristan's eyes on me had changed. There was gentleness in them and something searching, but also, quietly, a trace of sorrow. Even his tone had changed. He spoke to me the way one would soothe a child. I wanted so badly to tell him that I wasn't mentally impaired. The next day, a lawyer from Tristan's company came to my hospital room. He told me that Tristan had gathered evidence of my parents' and sister's crimes, embezzlement and criminal negligence, and had already reported them to the authorities. The lawyer asked politely, Mr. Adrian, Mr. Tristan instructed me that if you wish to press additional charges against your family, we'll fully assist you. I looked up at him and asked something else entirely. I want to dissolve my marriage with Tristan. Can you help me with that? Within 2 weeks, news came that my parents and sister had all been sentenced to prison. Tristan had hired a top-tier legal team to make sure they'd stay there for a very long time. But during those days, Tristan didn't come to the hospital. They said his company lost billions because of that incident. His father beat him severely for it. When I saw him again, the bruises on his face hadn't yet faded. He forced a calm smile. Adrian, no one will ever hurt you again. But the one who hurt me most was you. The third time I urged the lawyer to proceed with the divorce, a woman came to see me. She was elegant, graceful, but her face was lined with sorrow. You're Adrian, aren't you? She asked softly. Hello, I'm Tristan's mother. I was surprised. Tristan had never mentioned her. She smiled faintly. You have such big eyes. You really are adorable. No wonder, Tristan loves you so much. Thank you, I replied. But why are you here? Her smile faded. I came to tell you about Tristan. I was marked by his father against my will, she said quietly. I was in heat, he was in his drive phase. We were both overwhelmed by pheromones, like animals. And then, I got pregnant with Tristan. After that, I married him. You can imagine, it wasn't a happy marriage. I wasn't a good wife or a good mother. I hated his father, and I hated Tristan too. I treated him like a mistake. I never held him, never showed him warmth. I yelled at him, hit him. Her voice broke into sobs. I frowned. You shouldn't have done that. I know. She wiped her tears with a handkerchief and went on. When Tristan grew up, he began to hate me. He hated his father. He hated all omegas. Because of me, he rejected every omega he met. It was all because of me. Adrian, she said suddenly, standing to take my hand. Her voice trembled. Please forgive him, will you? He's suffering terribly now. He hasn't eaten, hasn't slept. He spends his nights reading books about autism. He didn't mean to hurt you. Please, give him another chance. I'm dying. This is the only thing I can do for him before I go. I looked at her calmly. Your dying has nothing to do with us, I said. If you're sorry, tell him that yourself. But as for what you did to him before, I don't think that can ever be undone. One good thing about being seen as slow is that you never have to be guilt-tripped. Her eyes went wide, unfocused. Large tears rolled down her hollow cheeks, falling onto her thin hands. She said nothing more. When she left, she looked completely drained, like someone whose soul had already slipped away. I think she met Tristan outside the ward, because soon after, I heard shouting. Why did you come here without asking me? I don't need you. I never did. A muffled sob followed. Then silence. When Tristan came in, his eyes were red. I'm sorry, he said hoarsely. I didn't know how she found you. He lifted his gaze to mine. What, did she tell you? That you're in pain, I said simply. She's dying. Tristan's fists clenched, then loosened again at his sides. It's karma, he muttered bitterly. Since I was already talking to him, I asked directly, when can we get divorced? Adrian, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. Just, don't divorce me, okay? He must have read a lot of books about autism, because he'd learned how to talk to me using all the right methods. I hated that tone, that practiced calmness in his words. I shook my head and refused to answer. The next day, though, Tristan brought my old behavioral therapist, the one who treated me since childhood. She was a gentle woman. It's been a long time, Adrian. Hello, Dar. Jenna, I greeted her. Did Tristan ask you to come? Dar. Jenna smiled and shook her head. No, you hadn't come to the hospital in months, and I couldn't reach you, so I contacted him. But yes, Tristan did talk to me, about you. I thought he'd ask about your treatment, but he didn't. He only asked about what makes you happy, what helps you relax. He even asked how to make it up to you when he upsets you. I frowned slightly. So you're here to convince me for him too? No, she said gently, shaking her head again. I told him that people with autism can be difficult to approach, because they're like distant stars, or pearls hidden inside a shell. I told him that if he ever gained your trust, if you ever opened up to him, that would be something rare and precious, like a pearl choosing to open its shell, showing its softest, most fragile part to the world. When he heard that, he cried. He said he had hurt the most precious person to him. He said he loved you, and that he was sorry. Yes, but now that soft part of the shell was torn and bleeding, and the shell had shut tight again. Jenna continued. Adrian, I'm not here to persuade you, but there are things you should know. What things? I asked quietly. That you don't deserve just pity, she said. You deserve respect, recognition, and love. You deserve to make your own choices, to live your life freely. She smiled after saying that, and so did I, because I knew, at that moment, that I was right about what I wanted. Tristan's eyes were always bloodshot these days, but he pretended to be cheerful around me. Adrian, I've started a charity foundation for people with autism. I named it after you, alright? Every year I'll donate money to it, so more people can receive treatment and care. Isn't that a good thing? I looked at his eager face and said calmly, that's your decision. All I cared about was when we could finally divorce. His smile froze. He stared at me for a long time. Then he knelt down on one knee beside my wheelchair, gripping my hand. Adrian, can we go back to how we were before? I pulled my hand away, lifting my hospital gown slightly. The scar's big, I said flatly. It can't ever be the same again. He'd seen that scar countless times before, yet every time, it seemed to shock him anew. His eyes went red. He trembled, reaching toward me, but stopped halfway. I'm sorry, Adrian. I didn't know you were hurt back then. I'm so sorry. I was bored of hearing it. You promised me a divorce, I interrupted. Don't go back on your word. He froze, silent for a long time. Then he slowly wrapped his arms around me, pleading, Adrian, please don't leave me. I stayed stiff in his embrace, every muscle tense. Tristan kept stalling. He always had an excuse. The lawyer was busy. The paperwork had an issue. Until one day, his heat cycle came again. After I was discharged, he worked from home. When he walked out of the study, his face was flushed, sweat rolling down his temples. I knew he was in pain, but this time, he'd have to deal with it alone. Maybe that was what he wanted, because there was no longer any trace of the lime-scented pheromone that used to drive him mad. He stumbled down the hall, bursting into the bedroom. Like a man possessed, he tore through my clothes, burying himself in them like a bird building a nest. His breath came in shudders. as he tried to inhale the faint traces of that citrus scent, but it was almost gone. Tristan lifted his head, eyes pleading. "Hold me, Adrian, please." I touched the back of my neck, where my damaged gland lay flat beneath the skin. Taking out a syringe of suppressant, I said expressionlessly, "I don't have pheromones anymore. You should use the suppressant." Pain flickered in his eyes. He reached out, voice hoarse. "All right, if you want a divorce, you'll have it." I suddenly pulled the syringe back. He'd used pheromones and suppressants before, to threaten me, to force me into things I never wanted. This time, it was my turn. Mimicking his tone, I looked down at him and said, "If you want something, Tristan, you have to pay the price." His jaw tightened, eyes burning red. "No divorce," he growled. The syringe shattered on the floor with a sharp crack. I rolled my wheelchair forward, crushing the fragments beneath the wheels, until I was right in front of him. "Tristan," I said softly, "do you remember how you used to treat me the same way?" I looked into his bloodshot eyes. "Tell me," I said slowly, "if you hate being controlled by your own pheromones so much, shouldn't you just have your glands removed? No glands, no pheromones, no more being ruled by primal instinct. Why keep blaming everyone else for your choices?" I rolled back a little, watching Tristan collapse amid the pile of clothes. A wrecked, trembling mess, crying like a man undone. "Tristan." I called his name the way I used to, and then said, "I hate you so much." Tristan finally agreed to the divorce. His susceptibility period wasn't even over yet, but he still had his lawyer take care of everything. I heard that this time, his episode came on violently. He'd already gone through 2 rounds of emergency treatment. The doctor said it was because both his mind and body had been pushed past their limits. On a bright, sunny morning, I left the villa without looking back. I threw away my phone, changed my number, and moved, with my little dog, to a city where no one knew me. With my talent for painting, I found work as an illustrator at a publishing house. It took me a long time to adjust to the new rhythm of life, but gradually, the days started to feel calm and gentle. Leaving Tristan, I realized, had made me a lot luckier. For example, I found a cozy apartment near the publishing house that allowed pets and was surprisingly affordable. And for some reason, I kept winning prizes whenever I stopped by the convenience store. Sometimes it was an air conditioner. Sometimes it was a refrigerator or a microwave. Since I'd never actually seen any appliances on sale in the store, for a while, I thought maybe it was some new kind of scam. Later, the store manager patiently explained that I just happened to be the 888th, 999th, and 1111th customer. So I decided I really was just lucky. Even on nights when the power went out, and fireworks exploded from the rooftop across the street, it all felt ordinary, like the world was finally quiet again. My apartment was only 500 meters from the publishing house. Halfway there was a clay pot rice shop that made incredible food. The owner always slipped in premium ingredients, Wagyu beef or big shrimp, and said it was because I was that day's lucky customer. So my days went in a simple triangle: home, publishing house, clay pot rice shop. I liked that steady rhythm. I even liked working overtime. It saved me on electricity at home. On sunny weekends, I went outside to paint from life. I tried to draw things other than the moon. I learned to take the subway, though I often missed trains because the crowds made me anxious. When I came home, I curled up with my dog, Dough Ball, and watched movies, thinking, I could live like this forever. But sometimes, I had the strange feeling that someone was watching me. At the convenience store, under the publishing house, in the subway, at the park where I painted. Whenever I turned around, there was no one. No, I told myself, it can't be him. That name, Tristan, was like a scar. When you couldn't see it, you could almost forget it was there. But the moment you did, the pain came rushing back, as sharp as ever. I stopped reading the news, stopped listening to gossip, anything to avoid seeing his name. My body had never fully recovered after what happened. Whenever the temperature dropped or snow fell, I'd catch a cold. The scar on my waist would start to itch and ache again. Right before the first snow of the year, the publishing house suddenly announced mandatory health checks. I hated crowded hospitals, but I already had a checkup today. I protested. My supervisor smiled. "Adrian, this one's a reward. You've been one of our best employees, so we're sending you to a private hospital. No lines, no waiting." When I still hesitated, he added with a grin, "Company benefit. You even get a free gift after the checkup." I spent all night wondering what the gift might be. The next morning, I went willingly. After a long series of tests, the doctor seriously reminded me to keep warm and handed me a pile of prescriptions. Among them was even scar removal cream. Stranger still, it was all free. They even threw in a 1-year health package for regular checkups. That's when I started to feel something was off. Maybe the hospital owed the publishing house money, I thought, and was paying its debt with fake employee benefits. I clutched the bag of medicine and sighed. If only this could have been cash instead. But as it turned out, the hospital wasn't very competent. 2 weeks later, I still came down with a fever. After work, I dragged myself to a small clinic on the street for treatment. The emergency room was quiet that night, just the way I liked it. The doctor looked at my test results and said, "You've got a high fever with a mild lung infection. It's not too serious, but I recommend you stay for observation." I quickly shook my head. "No, it's fine. I'll just get in for drip." Staying overnight in a noisy, chaotic hospital felt worse than dying. After I promised several times to follow the medication schedule, the doctor finally agreed. The infusion room was chilly. I found a seat against the wall, pulled my hood up, and tried to rest. One by one, the patients left. The quiet helped me relax. Drowsiness crept up, and soon I started to drift. Half asleep, I felt someone sit beside me. A hand gently pulled me away from the cold wall, guiding my head to rest against a warm shoulder. I tried to wake up, but the medicine made my body heavy. All I managed to mumble was a faint, "Sorry." When I finally opened my eyes, a nurse was removing the needle from my hand. The seat beside me was empty. Pressing the tape on my wrist, I asked, "Excuse me, do you know who was sitting here just now?" The nurse blinked. "He wasn't a patient. I thought you two came together." My mind went blank. I thanked her and walked out of the hospital. The wind outside was freezing. A taxi was waiting at the curb. The driver rolled down his window and called out, "Hey, free rides tonight." I walked over, lowering my voice. "Did Tristan send you?" The driver froze, hesitating. "I don't know who that is. Some guy gave me $100 to wait here for someone wearing a white down jacket." "That's you, right? Need a lift?" My stomach turned cold. My whole body began to shake uncontrollably. It really was him. That haunting shadow I could never escape. Ignoring the driver's calls, I ran. My hood fell off. The icy wind sliced at my face and neck like knives. A tall, dark figure caught up from behind, closer and closer. "Adrian, please, don't run." That voice, familiar, desperate, painfully soft. I ran faster, but at the next corner, I tripped and fell. The impact hurt so much I couldn't get up. The next thing I knew, he was there, lifting me off the ground, holding me tight. "Where did you fall? Does it hurt?" I struggled hard in his arms, eyes shut tight, hands clamped over my ears. "Get away from me!" I screamed. "Go away! Why did you have to show up again? Why won't you let me go? Tristan, you're cruel. I was so close to forgetting you. So close." My panic must have startled him. He set me down carefully on the stone steps, then stepped back, 2 meters away. "Farther," I ordered. He obeyed, taking 2 more steps back. I stood up, limping toward home. After 2 steps, I turned and shouted, "Stop following me." From behind, Tristan called out, "What did you say? I can't hear you from this far." Shameless. I glared at him and decided to just get home as fast as I could. After a hot shower, I paced the living room, back and forth, before finally giving in, walking to the door. Through the peephole, I saw him. Snowmelt dripped down his shoulders. He was standing right outside my door, eyes fixed on it, as if he could see straight through. Doughball barked softly in my arms. Then came his voice, muffled through the door. "Adrian, are you listening?" He leaned closer, voice hoarse. "Yesterday, my mother died. That beautiful, cruel Omega." My hand tightened around the doorknob. He went on, voice trembling, "I don't have a mother anymore. I used to hate her, but now I think, even having someone to hate was better than nothing. Why did she have to die so soon? She still hadn't paid back what she owed me." I clenched and unclenched my hand, but I didn't open the door. After a moment of silence, I heard him slide down to sit against the wall. "I only have you left, Adrian. Hate me all you want, but please, don't drive me away. Don't hide from me." Then he stood, his back to the door. "Adrian," he said softly, "look, I did what you said. I had my gland removed." My eyes went wide. Through the peephole, I saw it, a raw, jagged scar trailing down the back of his neck. That madman. It had been a year since I last saw Tristan. He'd gotten thinner, but somehow, his skin had grown a lot thicker. He started following me everywhere in silence. He would wait downstairs at the publishing house all day long, and he even sat openly beside me in the hospital's 4-room, keeping me company while I got my treatment. When I finally recovered, Tristan fell ill instead. With a burning fever, he stood at my door. "Adrian, can I come in? Just for a bit, it's so cold out here." I kept my face blank. "You should go to the hospital." He smiled faintly, weakly. "Okay, Go back inside, I'll be fine. But just as I shut the door, I heard a heavy thud outside. Of course, when I turned back, Tristan was already sitting on my sofa. I stood on the beige carpet between the couch and the coffee table, frowning. You liar, he wasn't unconscious at all. Tristan tilted his head back and smiled. I slipped. I turned away. Go back to work, Tristan. Stop coming to see me, he said quietly. The company's back under my father's control. I only run the charity foundation now. Then he stepped closer, his hands burning as they gripped my shoulders. It's called Angel Foundation. Do you like the name? When I had my gland removed, I almost died. I was in a coma for 3 months. For 3 months, I dreamed of you, over and over. When I woke up, I thought, even if you never forgive me, even if you hate me, it's okay. I just want to see you, take care of you, make sure you're safe and healthy. His hands trembled on my shoulders. I didn't dare turn around. The gifts from the convenience store, that was you? I asked. Yes. The medical checkup at the publishing house, and that private hospital? Yes. I spun around and glared at him. My job, too? No, no. He raised both hands like he was surrendering. When I found you, you'd already gotten the job yourself. I frowned. And this apartment? I bought it. The clay pot rice shop. He shook his head. No, but I've been sending them premium beef and shrimp, so they'd add it to your meal. I crossed my arms. Anything else? The fireworks. He looked up at me, guilt clouding his eyes. That night when the power went out, I was afraid you'd be scared, so I set them off from the building across the street. I didn't say anything. Slowly, tears began to spill from the corners of my eyes. They slid down my cheeks, hot against my cold skin. Tristan's eyes filled with pain. He pulled me into his arms, holding me tight, begging me not to cry. I struggled but couldn't break free. Through the sobs, I choked out, Tristan, you're impossible. He nodded, whispering apology after apology. Then he asked softly, Adrian, will you let me make it up to you? Please, let me stay by your side. I didn't answer. I turned toward the window, watching the snow fall silently outside. And I thought, this winter feels like it's going to be a long one. But somehow, I wasn't afraid anymore.